Andy, we're ready? Brianna, are you ready? Okay. Our wall clock is a couple minutes behind, so we're going to go ahead and start because it is 6 o'clock right now. I'd like to call the Clovis City Council meeting to order for November 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. And at this time, Mayor Pro Tem Diane Pierce will lead us in the flag salute.
Join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's City Clerk Parra will call the roll.
Yes, Councilmember Ashbeck. Here. Councilmember Baskell. Here. Councilmember Bessinger.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pierce.
Here.
And Mayor Moanatua.
Here. Next is a presentation of a proclamation, and Councilmember Bessinger will present this proclamation.
Not sure why the mayor assigned this to me. But
I know.
Tonight, we're going to be presenting a proclamation honoring Machine Head Brewery for its outstanding achievement at the 2025 Great American Beer Festival. Whereas on November 14th, 2020, Robert and Jennifer Arabian proudly opened Machine Head Brewery, bringing exceptional craft beer, community spirit, and local pride to the residents and visitors of Clovis. And whereas since its founding, Machine Head Brewery has become a cornerstone of the Clovis craft beer community, recognized for its innovation, craftsmanship, and dedication to excellence in brewing. And whereas Machine Head Brewery recently earned a national recognition, winning the bronze medal at the 2025 Great American Beer Festival for its beer Punk Fuzz in the Contemporary Goes category. And whereas this achievement is particularly remarkable given that the 2025 Great American Beer Festival features 8,315 entries from 273 breweries and cideries, first time I've ever used that word, in 108 categories. And whereas Machine Head Brewery is the first and only brewery in the city of Clovis to earn a medal at this prestigious national competition, thereby bringing home an award of excellence and distinction to our community. And whereas the city of Clovis is proud to recognize and commend Machine Head Brewery for its significant contribution to the local economy, its commitment to quality and creativity, and for representing Clovis with pride on a national stage. Now, therefore, let it be resolved, the Clovis City Council of the City of Clovis does hereby recognize and congratulate Machine Head Brewery, and it is signed by our mayor on today's date.
I'm really proud to introduce you to the Arabian family, and actually more than a third of the audience, I think, is here from Machine Head too, so this is their crew, but I'm going to let them take this mic and tell you about what happened, and also to show you the medal that they got. Go ahead.
And are there samples, right? Did you bring food samples?
We're going to bring you guys samples.
It's kind of a tradition. People that do food bring samples, no?
We are going to bring you samples. We're right down the road.
We know where to find you.
Yeah, so this was actually our fourth time that we've gone 4 times. This is the first year that we didn't attend in person. And I had joked with my wife, Jennifer, I said, this is going to be the first year we win something. And it was Saturday morning around 10 a.m., and our phone started just going crazy, and we didn't know what was going on. We thought the alarm was going off at the brewery. And she's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. Like, everyone's sending us messages, and then we finally realized that we won a medal, and everyone was just, the one time you guys don't show up, you guys took the medal. So it's a pretty big honor for us because this is kind of the goal. When we opened up the brewery, this is like the ultimate thing that we can possibly win. We worked really hard for the community and our city, and it was really nice representing Clovis. And one of the major breweries in California called Bear Bottle out of San Francisco, actually, first thing he wrote was, "You guys just put Clovis on the map."
Yeah.
And that was a really cool thing to get from them.
Yeah.
So that's it with me. I mean, we also did get a few recognition from a lot of like the hop companies, grain companies, nationally. So we've been getting visited all week by them. So one of them offered us a trip to Australia next year to go out there and pick out our own hop selection, which is awesome. We're supposed to be going to New Zealand next March to do the same thing. So I think we're going to take them up on the offer and see what we're going to do.
Excellent.
I'm
Comments?
going to be in Munich in 4 weeks. I'd be happy to check out some hops for you.
That would be fantastic. I would love to be in Munich too, one day.
Maybe you could take some product with you to share
Yeah.
in that world of.
That'll be your gift.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. That's perfect. Well, you said you've never said cidery. I've never heard the word in this chamber, punk fuzz. This is a big night.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, ghosts. Yeah. So great.
And that is the medal.
So what's next for you besides these awesome trips, and is there something else?
Well,
You should never go to the annual event again, so don't ever
Yes.
go.
I realize I might be the jinx
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it. But we're actually coming up on our 5th anniversary in 2 weeks. So November 15th this year, we're going to have our 5th anniversary. So it's going to be a pretty big celebration for us.
That's so great. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And feel free to plug where you are located and if you're open after the meeting.
We will be open after the meeting if you guys would like, because I have the key. So I can let anybody in.
I know people. You know people who can let
I
you
know
in.
people. We're right off of Minnewawa in Herndon, so in the Clovis Industrial
Yeah.
Complex. So it's just south of Herndon.
Yeah.
You can't miss us. We have a massive beer garden out there that's usually pretty lit up.
I love that so
Excellent.
much. That's so
What a
great.
wonderful story. Any other comments from the council? And Sean, did you want to say something as well, please?
Get a photo.
Yeah, okay, please.
Come on around here. You want to get the whole, let's get one with you and then the whole gang, and then we'll get you out of here.
And because you represented us well, we want you to have this for your brewery.
Yeah.
Awesome. Stop it.
Yep.
They're staying for the whole meeting, right? That's a joke.
Would this be the brew crew? Wow.
What are you doing here?
Well, this is a community effort.
I don't see how. You're going to stay the whole time, right? Did they not tell you that part? Unless you have beer in the car. I'm just saying. Closed, not open.
Not open.
Not open. Not open.
Okay.
I love that so much. Yeah, thank you so much.
Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you, congratulations.
She works at she's like,
Congratulations. Yeah.
so proud to know you. Congratulations. Well done. Well done.
What an excellent recognition for Machine Head Brewery, so thank you for that. Next, we'll move into public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on items within our jurisdiction, but not on the agenda. If you have any items, you can do so at this time. Come to the podium. If you can state your name and record for the address for the record, we appreciate that. And you have 3 minutes. Anyone? Yep.
Thank you. My name is, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Mhm.
Sure. My name is Mike Carlson. I live at 2132 Beverly Avenue in Clovis. So I'm just here to quickly present some federal legislation. I wrote this down just to avoid riffing and keep it tight, but it'll have a real impact on the public and private property rights and other tangible things in the city of Clovis and other places. So there's some legislation back in DC, the Wireless Leadership Act, that passed the House, and it was sponsored by Republican Bob Latta. It's in front of the Senate at some point, I guess, when they open back up. So it's an expansion of Bill Clinton's 1996 Telecommunications Act. So several bullet points here are, it will allow the FCC to automatically approve cell towers after 150 days. It blocks local governments from verifying FCC radiation compliance. It does not allow for property, aesthetic, or historical concerns, and public hearings will not be allowed. So, for the record, I'm not an anti-cell phone activist, but this legislation, this stuff isn't about cell phone service. It's about Internet of Things, self-driving cars, and God knows what else these guys are cooking up. So, federal powers are expanding, and ones like this, the COVID lockdowns, the undeclared weird New World Order presidential wars, exist outside of what is afforded to the feds in the Constitution. So, the nation was established it was not established in DC, and it's not going to be saved there. So the rights of citizens and rule of law need to come before the whims of technocrats. So I'd like for the city of Clovis to take a look at this proposed legislation and determine what the stance is on it, and if pushback will deliver real value to the citizens of the city and even bring people together across those oftentimes imagined red team, blue team lines. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson.
Sure.
Do we know the name of the
Do
bill?
you know the bill number?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I wish I wrote that down. It's pretty easy to find. It's the Wireless Leadership Act.
It's HR 1765.
Bob Latta.
Okay.
Yeah, passed the House.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else like to address the council?
I'm Jenny Cran from 3282 Bullard, but I have grandchildren at Garfield Elementary, and for the last, 30 years, I have been concerned that the children at Garfield and Alta Sierra cannot be convinced that they should walk down to the crosswalks and to get across the street. I'm having to go pick up the kids because I can't trust them to go to the crosswalks. There really needs to be maybe a lighted crosswalk like you have out in front here for Clark. Something like that. I had talked, when my kids were in elementary school there, and, to the city, and did not get much enthusiasm because they were thinking about, like a stop sign, a stoplight, which was going to be very expensive. But we're seeing more and more of these lighted crosswalks, and there should probably be one about where the Alta Sierra bleachers are, because those kids, they're, and it's the elementary and junior high kids. The Buchanan kids, they're smart enough. They're all driving up and down Peach there, like, I don't know, whatever young drivers drive at. So,
Making crosswalks even more important.
yes, thank you.
And Jenny, you're talking about Peach Avenue, huh?
Yeah, it's on Peach
Peach,
between
not the one on-
Nice and
Nothing
Teague.
on Nice.
Yeah.
But actually,
It's
okay.
where the little Alta Sierra, the football
A football
field
field
is.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, got it. Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council?
Yeah, so my name's Ian Besmer. I'm with Besmer Industries. We're a low voltage systems contractor out here in Clovis. Our office is 1085 Cole Avenue, Suite A. I was addressing the council based on concerns regarding the permitting process for low voltage systems projects. Currently under the California Electric Code, it's section 89108.4, which is the framework for electrical permitting in California. Our concern is under subsection 4. Basically, there's a blanket exemption for low voltage systems projects. Doesn't matter the dollar amount. But what our concern is it allows a lot of unlicensed competitors to take advantage of us licensed contractors because, as you're probably aware, Contractors State License Board has very limited resources in enforcement. So what I'm coming to the board to ask, or to the council to ask, is that potentially Clovis adopt some kind of a permitting requirement for low voltage systems, that be, telephone, category network cable, surveillance cameras, that sort of thing. Even just a simple plan check is all I'm asking for. I welcome the council's questions.
Any questions for, regarding this?
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you very much, Ian. Anyone else like to address the council? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public portion. Now we move to the consent calendar. Andy, did I have to check for the new rule you kind of spoke with me about, where, Brianna, do you have to check to see if there's anything online? Do we have to keep making that comment?
That won't be
No.
implemented until after the first of the year.
After the first
Yeah,
year?
the
Okay,
legislation doesn't take effect till January.
okay, all right. I was just jumping the gun on new Brown Act rules, and so. Okay, now we'll move to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and are recommended for approval by the city council. These items will be considered and voted on as a single item unless a council member requests separate consideration of any item. We have items 2 through 15. So anybody like to pull any of the items? Okay, seeing none. Anyone here in the public like to address the council on any of the consent items 2 to 15? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Bill Scott, 341 Evergreen. Last time we were here, I did the same thing. In the consent calendar, there's all this stuff that just gets voted on. And item 8, the same thing is again. I get a kick out of the words on this, that the position allocation plan is going to add 3 lead community service officer positions and delete 3 community service office positions. And in the packet, I know there's more detail in it than this, but it sure sounds to me, this is a system where what you're doing is changing the name of what these people are in order to give them a raise. Everybody got a raise last summer, and this is a way to kind of sneak in another one. You did 10 people last time, 3 more this time. I imagine next week you're going to do the same thing. It doesn't seem right to me. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I,
Yes.
Mr. Scott, in this scenario, you have, let's say we have 10 community service officers. If you want someone to take additional responsibility, or you want somebody to be in charge of X number of people, there is a bone to throw there, and you're going to give them more responsibility. They're going to have more accountability, and we're trying to professionalize our community service officers, and that's my position. I understand what you're saying.
Well, yeah, because in your packet, there was that kind of information was in there. But this is consistent. You keep doing this. And I don't know, when I was in the private sector, if I was to give more responsibility, they just moved me up what you're saying is you don't have a step on the ladder for that, and you're trying to create another step.
The position didn't exist.
Well, okay, what did
For
you
lead
do?
public safety, lead community service, I'm just trying to give you a little bit of info.
It-
I'd
well,
love to talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm seeing in the private sector, you would go up a step, but you're saying the step wasn't there and you're trying to create one. But this is happening all the time. It just continues and continues to happen. And to me, everybody already got a bigger raise than I ever got, and now you're looking for a way to give them another one. So,
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any other questions or comments with regards to the consent items? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close that. It's the pleasure of the council.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent items tonight.
Second.
Okay, motion second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have one item for public hearing. It's item number 16, and this is consider approval of a resolution of a necessity to determine that public interest and necessity require acquisition of property for public purposes and authorizing proceedings in eminent domain for property located north of Nice Avenue, west of Armstrong Avenue. Ryan Burnett, our engineering program supervisor, staff on this. Ryan?
Do you want to call out this letter?
Yeah, I'll
Good evening.
state that when it's public comment, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Before you this evening is a resolution of necessity authorizing the city to initiate eminent domain proceedings for a small portion of property located on the north side of Nice, west of Armstrong Avenue, and Dry Creek School is on the northwest corner there. The acquisition is needed to move forward with the Nice and Armstrong signalization project, which will install a new traffic signal and related improvements to improve safety and traffic flow at this intersection. Staff has been in discussions with the property owner since June of 2023. The original area of the acquisition was 5,905 square feet. It was reduced after working with PG&E and to address their relocation needs, and we wanted to minimize impacts to the property. The revised acquisition area is 4,971 square feet. We re-engaged with the property owner in November of 2024 with the updated acquisition area. However, up to this point, we have not been able to finalize a purchase agreement. Approval of this resolution will allow the city to proceed with eminent domain if necessary, while continuing negotiations with the property owner. The step is required to avoid project delays and maintain a federal funding schedule if possible. All legal procedures to comply with the required findings have been followed, and funding for this project is a combination of Measure C funds or development fees, we could use either, and congestion mitigation and air quality federal funds, which are programmed in the Federal Transportation Improvement Plan to be obligated in the fiscal year 25-26, so the current fiscal year that we're in, federal fiscal year. If the right-of-way is acquired by March of 2026, we could possibly make the deadline. Otherwise, we'll have to consult with the Fresno Council of Governments to reprogram the project's construction funds to hopefully federal fiscal year 26-27. The property owner has submitted a letter for council to consider. Staff reviewed the letter and is optimistic we can address the property owner's concerns. Staff would like to stress that issues presented in the letter will be addressed in an appropriate manner. And we would like to point out that the access to the property on Mies Avenue and Armstrong Avenue are remaining. What accesses are there, we're not taking away any access from the property owner. The irrigation facilities that are there that will be impacted are going to be relocated with the project. In summary, the resolution confirms public necessity for the project, compliance with all legal requirements, and authorizes staff to proceed with eminent domain if necessary. As always, staff will continue to work with the property owner towards a mutually acceptable solution and to address the concerns they have. Staff recommends approval of this resolution. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Ryan? Go ahead, Drew.
Ryan, I have a couple of questions. I read Mr. Judkin's comments, and I'm looking at Google Earth. There is a gate onto Armstrong that he's claiming will be cut off. And it looks like that's part of the area where we're going to be expanding if this goes as planned. would he still have access to that gate? You know what I'm talking, you know which gate I'm talking about? It's a kind of a
Correct.
cattle gate.
It's, how do you? Oh, there we go. Sorry. It's right, the plans show, I checked today, and we will send this to the property owner. The plans have a relocation of that gate, and it's shown right there. So we're going to maintain that access for the property owner, yes.
Now, as far as the existing fencing, how does that, is that on him? Are we going to replace it, or what are we doing?
That is a negotiated item. The project engineer has included the fencing already in the project. However, I mean, that could be something negotiated. Sometimes a property owner wants a monetary, amount for, and then they were going to do it themselves, or we include that in our project and we do it with our project. So it's just negotiated out.
So the assertion that he's not going to have access to Armstrong or Nees isn't completely accurate, and we're going to be, even though we're going to end up, if it goes the unfortunate respect of eminent domain, we're going to improve, we're going to either be a new fence or he'll get money to build that fence, and the taking of land isn't not significant. So that's the only questions I have.
Matt, you had some questions? No.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Sorry, light on. So just confirming that if we say yes to this resolution today, it doesn't stop the negotiation process and where we go from here. This is just the beginning process to continue negotiating with the property owner for a
Right. We would continue to work with the property owner. Okay. And on previous resolution of necessities, we do the same. The resolution necessity is rare, I mean, in the big scheme of things, to bring that before council. But to file is even rarer, to actually file the court action and to go through the eminent domain process. In the 16 years I've been here, we've never have. We've always negotiated a settlement with the property owners.
Okay, and just confirm, you said something about the appraisal value. Was the appraisal value originally given to him from a 2023, or is that a current appraisal value that we've offered the property owner?
We made a current offer to the property owner based upon an appraisal done in June of this year.
Okay.
So that's been updated. Yeah,
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff at this time? Okay, seeing none, we're going to open the public portion. I wanted to note for the record, I think Councilman Bessinger has alluded to it, and so has Ryan. Letter from Mr. Brett Judgkins. I think he's the property owner, and all council members have received this. I think it's also in the record. So anyone else here like to address the council on this item? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close that and bring it back to the council. Any discussion, or what's the pleasure of the council?
No, I just want to make a motion.
Okay. Did you have comments?
I was just going to make a motion,
Okay,
too.
go ahead.
Go.
I was first.
I know you were first. And you knew what a cidery was, so go ahead.
Motion to approve a resolution of necessity to determine that public interest and necessity require acquisition of property for public purposes and authorizing proceedings in eminent domain for property located north of Nees Avenue, west of Armstrong Avenue.
Second.
Okay, motion second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ron. Next, we have an administrative item. We have a workshop. This is a presentation of draft 2025 water rate study findings. Staff on this is Kevin Tuttle, Assistant Public Utilities Director, and with a couple others as well.
We brought the whole crew out.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As mentioned, we are doing a workshop today for a presentation on the draft 2025 water rate study findings. And I'll actually hand it off to Nick Torstensen, who is our Deputy Public Utilities Director, to get us started.
So I'll kick off this workshop. First, I'd like to introduce Todd Cristiano, who has also joined us. He's from Raftellus, which is the consultant helping us with the study. This is a nationwide a firm with over 190 consultants across the U.S., and they've helped a number of public agencies and utilities with rate studies just like this one. So we're really lucky to have him on our team. He brings over 26 years of experience in utility finance, and 20 of those years as a consultant, but he has 6 years where he worked at Denver Water on the utility side. So he brings a lot of experience, and it's great to have him on this team. So for this workshop, what we want to go over is the study goals and objectives, and we'll talk about legal compliance, and then we'll discuss some preliminary rate design considerations, and then we'll go over the financial plan, and then we'll show you some preliminary bill comparisons and a utility survey. So rate studies are really important because they help ensure the financial sustainability of the agency. It also helps promote fairness, and then it supports just the long-term planning, which is really critical for operating a water system. And the rate study has 3 areas of focus. First, it's a financial plan where it'll develop the amount of revenue that's required, and then cost allocation. How are the costs distributed proportionately? And then there's the rate design, which is how are the rates to ensure fairness. There are many challenges that we face today as a water utility. We face inflationary pressures, especially coming out of COVID. There's also stringent regulatory requirements always being added. Rate increase fatigue. Sigma is a big thing that we are trying to meet the requirements for. And then also future terms of borrowing. And then the increasing capital reinvestment costs are a big challenge. This right here is from the American Water Works Association, and it is a industry report where they kind of just outline some challenges that are faced by the water sector. Here's 18, and it kind of ranked in order, but I want to focus on the top 3. And the top 3 are financing of capital improvements, infrastructure renewal and replacement, and long-term drinking water supply availability. These are challenges that our agency faces and are big components of this study. And one of the challenges that I discussed earlier was inflation. So this is a chart that just shows how the water and wastewater inflation has outpaced that of just the normal CPI. So you can see that dashed line is the water and sewer costs, and how much higher that has increased than just the average CPI. And that's one of the challenges that we face as a water agency. And here is some specific costs that we have seen and experienced since 2021. So our surface water treatment plant filters, in 2021, we paid $1,500 per filter. We just received a quote a couple months ago on filters, and it was $2,800 per filter. Just a standard work truck, in 2021, we paid $29,000 for a standard work truck. This year, we pay $49,000. So significant cost increases, and that's not even addressing the EV, how EV, which are around $75,000. We've seen an increase in energy costs, which I'm sure we are all familiar with. In 2021, we paid $2.9 million for energy, and today it's around $5.3 million. And then just recently, we've had a Kell Engineering and Stantec Engineering, and they've performed an analysis of our water master plan capital improvement costs. And from their analysis, the cost increases from 2017 to 2024 are shown here. They're all over 100%. And these are some of the inflationary increases that we're facing as a water utility. So as we address just the operation and maintenance of our system is performing well, but it's getting older. So what we've seen, what we've experienced as an agency is we've had 36 water main breaks and repairs over the last 5 years, 216 taste and odor complaints, And we've experienced 131 days of lost production at our surface water treatment plant. And then there's a number of other large rehabilitation projects that we're working on. So to address some of the issues of our aging system, we have outlined some capital projects that need to be performed. And this is a big part of what's gone into the rate study, is trying to budget and plan for these capital projects. So that first one is to address groundwater. Sigma is a big thing for our agency. To stay in compliance, we need to be making sure that we're recharging the groundwater to remain sustainable. So you can see this next year we plan for a Loma Vista recharge basin. And then also maintaining our water meters and converting to advanced water meter infrastructure. That's another thing that we're in the middle of. And then in 2023, Stantec completed a surface water treatment plant evaluation where they evaluated the facilities at the surface water treatment plant, and they outlined a capital plan so that we could keep that facility up to date and make that just long-term sustainable and operate at a high level. And they outlined a number of projects, and those are also included here. And a couple of those are the new storage reservoir, the pretreatment. And the pretreatment addition, which will help address the lost production at the surface water treatment plant. And then also disinfection reliability, which is ozone. And ozone will also help with taste and odor. And then there's a number of other projects that are also a part of our capital outlay in this water study. And in addition, there's regulatory pressures that we see as a water agency. PFAS, those regulations are becoming more and more stringent. Making conservation a California way of life legislation will continue to change the water operations over the next decade. And then there's also the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and a plan to be in compliance by 2040. So with all of these pressures, with inflation, with regulatory, and our capital improvement project, these all went into shaping this water rate study. And with that, I'll pass it off to Todd, and he'll talk about some legal compliance.
Todd, before you begin, any questions right now with regards to sort of those items, or
Just
before we move to the
real
new
quickly,
subject?
and it's maybe not completely applicable to this. Our groundwater recharge basins, are we getting the percolation we should out of those, or is this going to be, the one in Loma Vista, are we going to get better than we have in some other places?
We are in the process of doing an analysis to see what we can expect from preliminary studies that we've done. We should get a decent recharge based on an analysis that was performed by Geosystems Analysis, which is a consultant that we used. So the hope is that we would get good recharge. Also, the owner who sold us the property I mentioned that she was familiar and she thought she witnessed good recharge there as well.
Great, thank you.
Just
Go ahead,
one
Lynn.
question. That was really interesting, so thank you for all that. The forecasted capital improvements, 1 million, 9 million, all of that. Today's dollars, forecasted dollar value?
Today's dollars.
Today's dollars, so likely more than that.
Yes, likely
More than that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So underestimated capital needs, just given
Yeah,
inflation.
yeah, they would need to be inflated,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, thanks.
And I had a question as well with regards to the other was 37 million. If you go back to that chart, and it's so much bigger than the rest. Oh, where's all the list of the charges?
I got it. Right there. There we go.
And so is it a lot of little ones that add up to 37, or is this, because it just seems like it's so big, but then we put it as other, and so it makes it, well, what is it that makes it so large compared to the others? Because you called out every other ones, but
Yeah,
this-
we called the larger ones. there's portions of the user share of certain projects that will be built like for development. In addition, there's a lot of maintenance projects like replacement of pumps, replacement of the addition of new wells, treatment for wells. So there's a lot of different projects over the years, and a lot of them are beyond 2030 as well. So there's mainly a number of projects.
And
so
I'm
for us to
assuming
list
there's,
it- go ahead.
individually, it's smaller than these 1515.9.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so, right?
And then my second question is, this study is of all future growth, meaning areas that are planned, or just only as a city as it is right now?
The
Or
city as
both?
it is right now.
Oh, so it's only what so in other words, it doesn't even take into consideration any new projects, any new track maps coming in. It's just our needs
Right.
right now, currently, what current users are gonna face. the
Yes,
rate
yes,
increase.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can just fill in a little bit on the other planned improvement projects. So there are projects that would be over $1 million included in there, but those are general maintenance projects, not even necessarily. So the projects that we selected up here are kind of the more visible projects. But projects you wouldn't see that are expensive, and actually it's even shown there on the exhibit to the right, and let's see if I can maybe highlight it for you. So right there, there's 4 pumps right there. And those are all very large pumps, and you wouldn't think it's going to be something mentionable, but that's $4 million estimated to replace those 4 pumps. And all of those pumps are original to the treatment plant, meaning they were installed in 2004. So projects like that are upcoming, we know it's a barrier we're going to hit. And so we're trying to account for it now so that it's not something that's surprise, it's here and here's a $4 million bill. It's things that we're trying to build now into the system, and other things like the chemical storage in the treatment plant area. Okay, that doesn't seem like a very highly visible project, but it's $1 million. So things like that are included in $37.5 million, they're almost honorable mentions, but they're significant cost at the end of the day.
And water meters is not residential, it's the meters that are
Yes, it's
measuring what
both.
comes in, or is it residential water meters?
Yeah, it's both.
Oh, it's both.
By commercial and residential water meters, all of them. So we have a regular water meter replacement plan program, and then we're also converting all of our older meters to meters that are compatible with AMI. So there will be towers that would be able to take all the water meter readings, so that way we could collect data on a more frequent basis, and just have better information, and then eventually shift to monthly bills.
Okay. No, it's just, it's existing users is sort of what I'm trying to
Yes.
get a hold of.
Yes, it's
That
existing
It's
users.
really, it's a need of the current system.
Of the current operating
Correct. Yeah.
system,
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Got it. Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Can
Go
I
ahead.
just follow up on the cost for the city as it is today? You started by saying it's the water master plan, and the water master plan has a longer horizon, yeah? So it's the city as we have it planned, right? Heritage Grove, all of that's in the master plan. It's not our existing city footprint with a few more maps thrown in. I guess I
Okay.
wanted clarity. Is that what you were asking?
Yes, so my reference to the master plan was when we had a consultant do an analysis of those capital costs. Those capital costs just show the inflationary kind of market that we're in, but not directly, but I wasn't referencing the master plan as we're doing master plan improvements.
So these figures aren't based on the master plan implementation? The water master plan implementation?
Yeah, so this is based on the master plan
They are.
implementation, but when you set out the master plan improvements, you have to take a stamp in time and say, okay, this is the proportion of the cost that's allocated to the users as it is today, and then there's a proportion that's allocated to future development. What we're accounting for here, and then that's why we're kind of specific in saying the user share, this is that user share portion that was time-stamped at that moment. So we are taking into account, so things like that new storage reservoir up there, there is a development share of that cost, and we know that is going to be needed in the future. The $4.4 million shown there is the user's
What the-
portion
yeah.
of that tank.
But it does, it's a wider, it's a net, it's into the future about what this is gonna all cost when
Yeah,
this all gets
absolutely.
done.
Yeah, we
okay.
have to do all this under the framework of
Yeah.
what is to come, right? And if the users bear a portion of that cost, we have to account for that in our study.
Thank you.
I just called you Nathan.
Sorry about that, Todd. Go ahead.
I saw his son here, I'm like, Nathan, what is that?
Mayor, members of council, good evening. Todd Cristiano. Before I get into the legal compliance part of it, I am not an attorney. Providing some context based on some court cases to help shape the rate landscape as of late, and if I make any ambiguous statements regarding the law, I'll defer to the city's attorney to correct me on that. One thing that's important to remember is that with any study, especially with the city, is that we have some guardrails that we need to operate in. And we need to consider these things like the policy landscape, the political environment, certain policies and practices of the city or the utility, as well as general cost allocation principles. But the most important component of that is local, state, and federal laws. And in this context, that means Proposition 218, and obviously case precedent associated with Prop 218 as it relates to water and wastewater rates, among other utility services. And to provide some background, I'm sure this information here is not new with Prop 218, but obviously one of those guardrails we need to stay within is making sure that the fees we develop are proportional to the cost to provide the service to the parcel, and that it must be, the fees and revenue generated from that must be used for a specific purpose. There are a number of other items that are in Prop 218 in terms of the process, voting and objections and whatnot, but the key thing is this proportionality of cost to the parcel. And that's obviously brought up some court cases in the past decade that have really reshaped how rates are being looked at, and cost of service and financial planning has been looked at from the rates perspective. And I just want to highlight a couple of these court cases that we're really mindful of when we look at a rate study. Capistrano, back from 2015, really set this off in terms of what can be done for setting cost-based or providing the cost to provide the service to customers. And all these court cases I bring up, they all have a similar theme in that they all had tiered rate structures. And tiered rate structures are when you have different thresholds of usage. So you might have a threshold of 0 to 10,000 gallons, and if you use water within that 10,000 gallons, you charged one rate. You go to the next tier, you get charged another rate, and so on and so forth. And with the Capistrano case, it really pointed out that, hey, just balancing your revenues and costs doesn't mean that you are being proportionate to the cost of the service to the parcel. And Capistrano, they also had tiered rates there. And so one of the other things we noticed in that was that the burden of proof is upon the utility. And I'm sure there's a lot of legal depth to that, but in terms of from a rates perspective, it's having the adequate documentation and using assumptions that can be rooted in calculations and analysis through how the utility operates, how customers use water, that the burden of proof is upon the utility to make sure they can demonstrate the cost to provide the service based on each tier's rate. So essentially in Capistrano, the utility was found in violation of Prop 218. COCR versus OTI, this is more recent, 2024. Again, they had a tiered rate structure. A number of interesting things within that court case about how the tiered structure, again, did not provide the proportionality of the cost to provide the service. And there was an issue in there about when you think about electric rates like time of day rates, that water utilities don't operate the same way, and that there's not a high cost, low cost water source like there is in electricity, whether you use coal-fired plants or whether you use natural gas or solar, whatever the case may be. So it talked about tiered rates and trying to equate that to the rate of use versus the overall accumulation of use in a month or a billing period. And again, they found that the rate structure did not comply. One of the items, both Capistrano and the OTI in these other court cases too, is the fact that these tiered rate structures were set for conservation, that the Article 10, Section 2 of the Constitution did not apply, which deals with the conservation and water, again, I'm missing the name of the beneficial water use for the state, and that was not a plausible reason or cost-based reason to have a tiered structure. Finally, Pats versus the City of San Diego, this goes back to all the way to the 2013. Again, similar issues regarding how the tiered structure was set based on peaking factors. There's in any water system, there's a peak day demand, there's an average demand, and trying to equate that to tiers within a customer class or the residential class didn't pass muster with the courts on that. And again, the whole thing with Article 10 and Section 2, Article 10, Section 2 played a role in that when you look through that court case as well. So based on that information and based on what we're seeing from other cities and what some of our other California consultants are looking at, obviously it's really based on what the utilities want to do. It's a balance of the risk, the political landscape, the policy landscape, and customer environment in terms of how do customers feel about the water utility, of whether the utilities are going for continuing with the tiered rate structure or going with a uniform rate structure. There are certainly utilities that Ref Tells has listed a tiered rate structure on the at the benefit or the request of the city to retain an existing rate structure. But just based on the recent outcome of the OTI or COCR case and the discussions we've had with Nick, why am I forgetting your name all of a sudden? Kevin. I've only been working with you for a year. With Nick and Kevin is that looking to do a reset on the city's rates, because the last rate structure study it was done was 2015. That was revenue neutral. They went from 4 tiers to 3 tiers in response to the Capistrano case. So no change in the increase or financial plan, no increase in revenue or decrease in revenue, just how you're going to get that from the customers. And because it's been some time, and there is just quite a bit of uncertainty right now with some of these court cases and how this is going to play out. And of course, it maybe varies in the portion of the state where the utility is in as well. That resetting and starting with a uniform rate structure and then beginning to gather the appropriate information that you need to have that relationship, proportional relationship and burden of proof to demonstrate that a tiered rate structure is appropriate for the residential class or the commercial or whatever customer classes you have, gives the city some time to start thinking about how to accumulate that information and learn more about how customers are using water to where there might be a rate structure that's more appropriate in the future. That would better be a better representation of cost recovery by each customer class. So we're recommending at this time, just based on all that information, that adopting a uniform rate structure would be the next course of action for the city, with obviously reevaluating that in the future.
We weren't laughing at you.
No, that's okay.
We were just laughing that someone walked in the chambers and he has a case of something and it's not water.
Well, maybe he's in the right place.
I think he might have been here earlier, and I'm not sure exactly, but I think there's samples, but they're not open. And the police officer back there can vouch for that. You are so sweet.
She didn't bring enough for everybody.
So it's really hard to talk water and beer. We're so sorry. It's just, you stand no chance.
No, so,
That's true. That's exactly right.
So
That's funny.
that's what Raft House recommends, and that's really just based on the discussions. We've been working on this project for over a year, made a lot of revisions, a lot of scenarios, done a lot of thoughtful chin stroking. We talked about tiered rate structures. We talked about all sorts of rate structures and obviously the environment that we're working in. And we recommend that, because you are kind of resetting, it's been some time since you did a rate structure study or rate study, that it's time to reset, start looking at the information you need to collect, and then come back in a couple of years or whatever the time is appropriate and begin to evaluate more specific type rate structures for different types of customer use within a class and between the classes. So I'll turn it back over to Kevin.
Can I ask a question just generally? And this is probably an uninformed question. I'm confident of that. Are customer classes relevant anymore? Like the staff report speaks to them, and then I wrote myself a note. Do we even need them anymore? If you're gonna charge a rate based on the cost of the service. Is not the cost of the service the same whether I live in a house, I run a McDonald's or a brewery, or I have a fruit processing plant? What's the thinking on customer class just generally?
Well, that's an interesting one, and there's a really technical version, but I think it's one of the court cases here. I think it was Otai talked about, it doesn't cost any more to deliver a drop of residential water or commercial water. That might be true in some instances. I can see a value in seeing that there is a difference between providing, charging different classes, different costs for water, even if it's a uniform structure under certain circumstances. Again, it's based on the information. From a more technical, usually the difference, the reason for the differential in costs between customer classes, say a residential, commercial, industrial, whatever, is looking at the demand factors and how they place demands on the system, when they're placing demands on the system. And the way I look at it is that how long are they renting space in the pipe and pushing somebody else out? So if you think about in the morning, residential customers, everyone's irrigating their yard perhaps, and they're probably the biggest larger water user, and they're using most of the pipe in a sense. They're kind of renting more space at that point, and there is a cost associated with the design and size of that pipe, so they're paying kind of a lease rate, and then other classes come in and that sort of thing. That's one way to look at it. One way to look at, well, is there a really distinct difference? You still might have those different sorts of demands and rental and lease rates, but what we're finding is conservation and people's attitude and changes in thoughts on water use begins to go down, that the demand factors and demand requirements in certain parts of the country, probably in California and truly in Colorado, where I'm based out of, is we're beginning to see more and more similar demand patterns of the different customer classes. So commercial and residential becoming more similar. And so that would drive the rates to be more uniform between them. So whereas 10 years ago, residential might be $3.50 per 1,000 gallons and commercials $1.50, that it's coming down to getting close to $2. So there's a couple ways to look at that. Again, it comes back to what kind of information do you have? How good is your billing system to aggregate out the different customer classes? Have you been monitoring that and setting it up correctly? That's the other, and how do you want to break that out? So I don't have a direct answer for you, but it's a great question, and it's something that we do consider with every study. And again, it gets back to here of based on the data that was available and what we saw in terms of demands of looking at a uniform rate structure for all customers.
Yeah, because you also could make a case that a commercial user produces a greater economic return to the city in some. I mean, if you have a job, you also produce economic value as a homeowner. Right. So I was sort of thinking about all the ways you might look at it, but just a general customer class thing. Because I know when we did it in 15, it was about conservation, as I recall. And so, I mean, but that ship has sailed and it's not upholdable, if that's a word. So I get that, but it's an interesting, so as you talk about rate design, it's an interesting discussion about, do they even matter anymore? I'm not sure.
In other states, we go through an exercise called pricing objectives, and we look at what's important. What do the rates need to reflect from the community? Is it conservation? Is it revenue stability? Is it demand management? So there's a little more leeway in other states that don't have a Proposition 18 or a legal requirement, and economic development is certainly one of those things of, so well, should other customers subsidize some commercial because it brings in jobs and taxes and all that good stuff too. We just don't have the liberty of doing that here. It's got to be cost-based. And so it's really going to be based on data and thorough analysis and beyond a reasonable doubt of showing this is the differential between a customer class.
Interesting. Thank you.
I had a couple questions on the cases and the tiers and that, and sort of kind of dovetailing off of what Councilmember Ashbeck was asking as the classes. To that point, is there an aspect, because we're talking about all the capital projects and the infrastructure improvements that are needed, is there kind of a differentiation between like the stress on the system that a residential customer would place versus a commercial or industrial customer, as far as, rate of deterioration to the pipes or the, stress on the pumps and things like that? Is that part of a tier structure? And then the other thing was, in the cases that you mentioned, were there any where the tiered system was upheld by the courts? Or, because I didn't hear any of that. So I get why we would be going to, kind of cut it all down, go back to the uniform rate, and then look forward. But what would we be looking for to have a defensible tier system?
Okay, I think I'll start with the first part of the question in terms of stress on the system and how that, whether different classes place different stresses and incur different costs. That's that whole demand factor and that I'm talking about, is that if they're using more of the pipe instantaneously, a period of time over and over again, they pay a more representative share of that cost, and that cost is to do the repair and replacement of the facilities over time. Regarding these court cases, I'm unaware of any court cases, and there might be some, but these being the biggest one, I'm unaware of any court cases where the tiered structure has been upheld, that they've demonstrated the ability to match tiers to cost. Not to say it probably couldn't be done, but I think there needs to be some more information on that. AMI, advanced metering infrastructure, which allows you to read every 15 minutes and things, that could provide a better basis for that, and a lot of communities are looking into that. Of course, it's just massive amounts of data, and trying to warehouse all of that and do that analysis, it's, you know, you have to weigh the cost benefit of that as well. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think generally, but again, kind of on the stress of the system, because the way I'm thinking of it is, you know, if what I'm doing at my house is, you know, taking a shower, flushing a toilet, doing the laundry, that kind of stuff, it's far less impactful, even for the time that I'm using it, than maybe some of the more industrial type of uses where, I mean, obviously there's quantity differences, and so that's going to be factored into the pricing, but just the intensity of use, or that is.
Yeah. No. And again, from a rate setting perspective, just based on data that we have, is really looking at how the rates of use on the system is really the big demand. So you think about the rates of use, kicking on pumps and things like that, that would be a stressor on the system. I'm sure Kevin and Nick could probably come up with some other examples specific to the city of Clovis. But from a rates perspective, that's how we would look at that. We try to capture that within this kind of looking at different demand patterns for the utilities, and it's it varies by utility and varies by class, and it's just based on available data that the utility can provide. And sometimes the courts have not said, with these cases, have not said, well, that's insufficient, hence the reason uniform rates for all customer classes. There's no differential between the different customer classes and the demands.
So then as we do go forward and look, we go to uniform, that's the proposal, but then we are looking to still study the possibility of doing a tiered structure. And if that really is the case, then do we have kind of those ideas in mind, or those things that we're looking for to have a defensible tier structure?
Yeah, and maybe I can just chip in here. So in terms of getting to like the actual customer level and getting the data, that I think the courts are really starting to necessitate is that advanced metering infrastructure, which Nick just talked about, you know, the $9.9 million you guys saw up there, that is getting to that level of data where we're actually bringing in that customer use data on 15-minute or hourly intervals, and we can see hour by hour what's being used, right? And at this time, we don't have that level of data. And I think that's what the courts are really asking you to get to. So you can say, okay, you know, all of the single-family residential homes in the system are tagged on this meter data. Now go look at that data and see when they're using the water, and then we can really appropriately evaluate the true stress on the system, right? Because I can see what a single-family home uses, or a multifamily apartment complex uses, or an industrial user. All of that data we can house in that AMI and be able to use it. We're about 5 years out from having our AMI system fully deployed. Actually, Council just approved 2 weeks ago the installation of 2 base stations that'll help start that process, right? So we'll be able to start using the meters we have today. But full implementation of that is about 5 years out, and then we'll probably need a couple years of data. Typically, the state likes you to have multiple years of data to be able to fall back on to say, yes, we're confident that this is how users are, you know, truly using the water. Right? So we have a little bit of time before I think we'll have that level of data, but that's absolutely something that we're working towards. And I think in future rate studies, this is absolutely a question that's going to come back to us, and we're going to want to evaluate it.
I'll just make one final comment that, you know, we're probably going to continue to see proposals for tiered rate structure, be it even from other consultants, Raftellus, or from other communities. Again, it's really community specific. In terms of, like I said, their level of risk and where they are in terms of information, AMI infrastructure, and other things that would help justify this cost basis for different rate structures other than uniform. So the landscape's kind of still being formed, I guess, in a sense, for these rate structures, and I guess time will tell as to how that shakes out and where we land with Prop 218 and the ability to, have those different rate structures to recognize those other different components, cost, or pricing objectives. Oh, I'll turn it back over to Nick there.
My turn. Okay, so under that light, we looked at the rate design and the considerations that really go into how to, most appropriately ferret out all these, different application of the rates, right? So with these recent pivotal court cases, really we looked at two things, and that's the updated cost of service evaluation. That's just confirming that we're assigning the appropriate cost to the appropriate customer class, making sure all of that's allocated correctly. And then the other was revising the rate structure, and what does that really look like? And with these court cases, and as Todd just mentioned, the recommendation from Raftellus was to move away from a tiered structure and into a uniform rate structure. And part of that process is also redefining our service charge. So rates are broken out into two components. We have a service charge, and then we have a volumetric use charge. So the service charge is the basic cost to use the water meter. The volumetric charge is how much water you're actually using. And so on the right, you can see, just real briefly, we have a table, and this summarizes our existing rates as they stand today. So we have our residential component, which is a singular service charge, so there isn't any differentiation between single family or multifamily, it's one charge. And then we have 3 tiers currently for our volumetric use. And then on non-residential, that's actually broken out by meter size already. So you have varying meter sizes and a cost for each of those meters. And then we only have 2 tiers for the non-commercial. And understanding how we got there, it's really important to understand where we were. So in 2009, that was our last actual increase in rates. And in 2009, it was a 35% increase in year 1, 15% in year 2, and a 5% in year 3. And we did a little bit more digging just to see, okay, well, maybe that's an anomaly. That's 17 years ago. So we look back previous to that. Well, it's actually in the staff report. The last increase prior to that was 1991. So it seems to be this is a little bit of the trend. 2016, we mentioned we also did a rate study then, but that was a revenue neutral adjustment, meaning we weren't trying to generate any additional revenue to fund additional capital projects. The rate design at that point was more of a reevaluation, looking at the tiers in light of the recent Capistrano decision. So if you'll remember, Todd mentioned Capistrano was 2015. We came right back in 2016 to look, okay, are we still, compliant with the law as it stood at that time? And what wound up happening was we had 4 tiers at that time. We reduced it to 3, and then we added drought rates at that time. So that was a new component that was added in 2016. But as Todd mentioned, we've had 2 new court cases that have kind of even shifted our view frame even more so since then. So with those rate design considerations, the financial needs that Nick talked about, we had to get into a financial plan, start looking at what does this mean for the enterprise. So in the financial planning process, there are really 3 steps. We have the revenues and what's coming in. We have the expenditures, obviously what's going out, and then financial policies that impact your decision-making, things like reserve levels and coverage ratios. Those 3 things work in tandem to create a multi-year financial plan for the utility. And within that, we have a cash flow structure. So you have the overall water utility, and you break it into 2 flows. There's the enterprise cash flow, and then you have your capital and reserve funds. Things in the enterprise cash flow might be your rate revenues, your operating revenues, O&M expenses, transfers to reserves, and so on, participation development projects, things of that nature. In the capital and reserve funds, you have obviously your capital fund, that's your transfers from the enterprise fund, and then your repair and replacement program. You have your reserve funds, which for the water enterprise, we have 4. We have the membrane replacement fund, drought fund, Sigma fund, and the TCP treatment. And then there are development funds, and this is the user-specific participation in reliability and redundancy projects that help the existing system.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Where does, in the financial planning, where do the settlement money that we've gotten over the years, are we using any of that to buttress this?
Yeah, that is considered. So you'll notice we have so right here in our reserve funds, we do have the TCP treatment.
Right.
And that's in there, and really those are almost set-asides to help the TCP treatment on our wells. And one of the things we actually joked about today is forever chemicals equal forever funding, because realistically, those funds, while they're in there, they will never be sufficient, because what winds up happening is you develop these treatment plants on wells, right, to pull the TCP, or one of the
PFAS.
things Nick mentioned were PFAS, right? You put those treatment plants in, but they give you a set funding at, let's say 2025. Well, now we have to maintain those things in perpetuity. So we're constantly changing out the filter resins or things like that. And eventually that funding is going to run out, and then there's nothing left, right? And most of that funding will go to the actual capital project to install the treatment plant itself. So those funds are in there and they are considered, but we know they're going to run out.
So at the very least, while we still have those funds and use them, we don't have to pass that on to the ratepayer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so with the rate design considerations and the financial plan, now we really get into what are the revenue needs for the water enterprise and what is this going to look like. And so this is one potential avenue for generating the revenue needed to cover the O&M expenses like Nick talked about. We have a lot of inflationary expenses. We have these capital projects that are needed. And so there's revenue needed to generate the funds to pay for all of this, right? And so, like I mentioned, one potential avenue we're looking at is about a 70% increase, and we're proposing that over 3 years of recovering that revenue. And currently, we're looking at 23% per year in 27, 28, and 29. That would start January 1 of 27, we'd start that. And what that does really is allows us to keep our ending fund balance above our target operating reserve. So, and that's the lower graph you see here. So you can see the bar chart itself is the ending fund balance, and the line kind of going left to right here, that is our target operating reserve. So you can see there's a depletion in the ending fund balance, which tells you those capital projects, we do anticipate those getting constructed. This isn't something we're asking for with no intent to do it. We intend to complete these projects. But you can also see, for instance, here in 28, we're barely above our target operating reserve. And one of the important things to note about that is that's assuming that we can keep our debt service coverage up for future bonding needs if that comes about. If we were to start spending that fund balance down and spend into our reserves, we start to lose that bonding capacity and that bonding ability. So we really want to do this in light of that and keep that option available to the city. So that's one of the reasons why you see this increase. One of the other things too, just to mention, is the 5-year forecast. I know last year's 5-year forecast started to show a negative draw down from the water enterprise. So we're looking at correcting that as well in this process. So those are just some of the many factors that go into this 23%.
Hey, Kevin, on that last chart,
Yep.
so the bottom graph is with the anticipated proposed revenues? Or
Yes.
as the revenues it is right now?
That's with the proposed
That's with the
23%
proposed.
additional, yes.
Okay.
Yep. So the 23% in year one is an average. And what I mean by that is we're talking about going from this tiered rate structure where differing water uses get charged a different amount. Now we're going to go to the single uniform charge. And there's kind of a reset in that because we had varying tiers for residential and non-residential, right? So now you're taking two things that were kind of working in tandem but independent of each other, and you're melding them into one. So in that first year, it's really an average increase of 23%, but different customer classes are affected differently just by the nature of how we charge today. So we did a real high-level dive, but we wanted to be kind of transparent and upfront with the differing impacts to the varying customer classes. So what that could look like under this scenario is the single-family residential would see about a 32% increase in revenue generation. Multifamily and commercial actually would go down slightly, so 7 and 10%. And one thing I would note about the commercial side of things is currently we have a fire line service charge. And what that is that's a standby capacity for our commercial users that have overhead fire sprinklers. And we ask that they reserve that capacity in our system. And historically, we'd charge that a certain way. And in this process, we took a second look at that because we had been asked questions about it previously and found that really there's the M1 manual, which is set forward by AWWA, that's the American Water Works Association. It provides really good guidance in terms of how to calculate that. So we're looking at a reevaluation of that standby fire service charge, and that's where you see that decrease. But just continuing, industrial, 27% increase roughly, and then landscape irrigation is about a 32%. So just to look at landscape irrigation, we're one of the largest landscape irrigation users in the city, so we're sharing in some of this burden.
Do users of recycled water pay the same as if it's like regular old water?
No, recycled water users actually have their own rate, and we did evaluate this as part of the study, and they'll have their own separate cost of service and their own rate update as part of this process.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so now we've talked a lot of numbers and percentages, and I think really what makes more sense is let's kind of break this down into the brass tacks and show what it really means to bills. So for a single family home, we looked at 3 different scenarios. We have the low use, the average use, and the high use customer. And these are, through water system analysis, we actually looked at this to try and break this out and keep it realistic. When we talk about low use, that's 25% of our users and less would be in that low user. And then we have our average user, and then our high use is 75%, and then it would go up from there. So in terms of our low use, they would see about a $6 a month increase under this current proposed scenario. Average use would see about $13 a month. And then our high use customers for single family would see about $15. And that's the dearth of our system. That's the vast majority. So where does that put us on the map in terms of rates and how we look across the valley? So currently, the outlook's not great. We're at the bottom. We're the cheapest in terms of our current rates for a single family home on average use. We're about $28. With that first adjustment, we would go up to about $41. And then on the subsequent years, we would go up to $51 and then $63. And that $63 would be at the end of the third 23%. So that's what that's showing. So one thing to note, and it's in really fine print down there in the bottom right, and I wouldn't expect you to read it, but that number reads at the average bill across this utility survey was $63.73. And if you'll note, our fiscal year 29 proposed is $63. So even after these 3 increases, we get to average. And that's also assuming that no one else in that same time period increased their rates, which we just know isn't true. In fact, if you'll notice along a couple of the names here, I'll just point out, we have Kingsburg, Bakersfield, Manteca, and Roseville. You see those stars? That means we know they're actually increasing in 26. So in 2026, we know those agencies are already increasing. So we know that we'll only continue to slide down the list, even though we're doing these increases. So that's one important thing to know as we look at this study overall. And with that, I'll hand it back to Nick.
Can I just ask a question about that chart there? So those higher ones, is this apples to apples, or is there anything within those higher numbers that would be different than the straight service that we're talking about? Anything that kind of accounts for a higher average cost?
This is apples to apples as far as water bills go. So even one thing to note, some of the newer master plan developments here locally, we have Root Creek Water District, which is Riverstone. That's the new development at Avenue 12 and State Route 41. They're at the very top, and Tesoro Viejo is not far away from them, and that's the other master plan community just farther up 41. And those are some of the newer master plan developments that are getting a lot of talk here locally, and you can see their rates are, quite significantly above where we're at today.
And both Root Creek and Tesoro Viejo, are they both using the package plants to reclaim their water?
For sewer, I believe that Root Creek currently is, and I think Tesoro is, if I can recall, but I think Root Creek is actually in the process of building an actual treatment plant.
I know the prior council went to Tesoro Viejo to take a look at their package plants, and I was impressed, but I'm also told that their reliability has been problematic, and hopefully maybe Root Creek will get all the bugs out of the system and we can look at that again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Well, when you're finished with this section, I had a question. I don't know if are you, before you, so will you go back to the slide that talked about revenue something? This one. Is generalized revenue changes and the increases and decreases the same as what people could expect in their rates? So if you are a single-family resident, I might expect a 32% increase in my water rate. And if I'm a commercial user, I would expect a 10% decrease in my water rate. Are we saying the same thing with just a different headline?
I say generalized because it'll vary across every user. And the reason I say that is we talked about like those standby fire service charges.
Yeah.
So that could mean a pretty significant decrease in your bill if you're a low water user. But ultimately, even talking about a 32% increase, it will really be at the behest of every user and how much they want to use water. So if you might be 32% today, but if you say, with this new volumetric rate, I'm going to reduce my use because I don't want to pay that charge, you may not be 32%. You may drop down to 20% just because you make a conscious decision to say, I'm not going to use as much water.
So in our other structure where commercial users were in a higher tier and paid a higher rate, this will level that all out. And so those folks, industrial are going to pay more. But commercial and multifamily would expect a lower water bill,
potentially, yes.
bill based on this new, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I was reading that. You have the affirmative headline or affirmative heading, and I'm like, well, what does that mean to like the homeowner? So I get it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just to note, that's only the first year. The subsequent years, if we were to move to this proposed scenario, the second and third year would be 23% across the board. It would just, for everyone, because it's just a uniform rate at that point.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll hand it off to Nick.
Okay, now I'll go over a couple next steps. And these next steps are very dependent upon the feedback that we get today from council, and that'll determine the directions that we go next. But over the next 2 months, our goal is to get feedback and then to make any revisions or updates to the study, kind of moving towards the final study. And then in January, February, obviously depending on the feedback, and during this November, December, we want to do more outreach and meetings and conversations with stakeholders and those who are highly impacted by this study to get feedback as well. And then based on that feedback and based on council's feedback, then we move forward. So January, February, we would at some point come back to council and seek authorization to proceed with the 218 hearing. And then in early March, conduct a Proposition 218 hearing with the goal of January 1st, 2027 is the implementation of the new rates. So with that, we'd like to open it up for feedback, and we really would like to kind of take feedback from council on what on how you guys feel about moving forward, specifically like with the uniform rate structure. And
Go ahead, Drew.
Some of these rate increases are going to kind of hit, especially some of our older citizens who've been in the same house for a very long time. Part of our educational process, it would be great if we could get some, I'm sure we have people on staff who are experts on saving water and landscaping improvements and things like that, so that we can help folks reduce their water use and also make their property look nicer. I mean, I know I've noticed that we've had At the corner of Sunnyside and Herndon, there's I think it's an auto parts store that they did the drought tolerant stuff, and then we just put a restaurant at Villa and Shaw that has grass, which kind of surprised me. I thought we had come up with a policy that said everything has to be drought tolerant, but I don't know what happened there. But we know that there's going to be droughts. And if we can at the very least make sure that in the future, when we're talking about landscaping, especially for city stuff, we need to set the tone ourselves. But it would be nice if our seniors would be able to get some advice on that.
Go ahead, Lynn.
3 points on feedback. One, I've said 25 times in 25 years. Why we wait so long between these rate increases, I guess it's an unanswerable question. 1990 something, 2009, 2025. Anyway, so there's that. Maybe that's just the way we're gonna do it. But, so I think that doesn't help us in the communication because the number is big. A 23% increase is big. Now, I don't do math, but if my average bill is $28, is that what that chart said? Mm-hmm. So 23% of $28, is that how this works? How much is that? $4? Mm-hmm. So it's not an excessive amount of money, but it sounds so big. So I just think we create a difficult communications scenario by our own good management, take as long as we can, make these things last. Pumps shouldn't last 20 years, but we get them to last 20 years. So all that I think works. It's the right thing to do, but right now it's always kind of a challenge. So I wish that wasn't the case, but I do think the elimination of the tiers makes a ton of sense. I don't think I really ever understood how we decided who was in what tier, but I think a single kind of structure for everybody makes a lot of sense. And I think the feedback from users of all kinds, so whether you live in a senior citizen mobile home park or whether you are industrial or fruit processing or some other high water user, I just think the perspective is super important. So, and we did that last time, I know, and we got really good input, and so I don't expect this would be any different. So I think this was, I don't want to say interesting because it's water rates, but I think it was really, I think it's really interesting. The thinking was clear, how you got there was clear, the steps were clear. I thought it was really very good. The timeline is, you got a long runway to get the work. So I commend all of you on the work. I thought it was really well done. And it was water rates after all, so extra credit for that. But those are my comments. So I think you're on the right track and the feedback we'll gather. But I think that the 20-year horizon on that stuff is just, I don't understand that. But anyway, enough of that. So good work. Good work. I will never say it was interesting again, but it was really good to know. Just kidding.
Go ahead, Diane.
I think it was interesting too. I don't, but well, I mean, the way you guys presented it was very, very helpful, and I was able to even wrap my brain around most of what you were saying, so that's a good thing. And so my point, I agree with Councilmember Ashbeck on the concept of taking so much time in between these, but I'm certain it's a heavy lift to do the studies and do kind of the comprehensive things. So I get why we don't do it every year, but if there is a way maybe to somewhere in the middle, I don't know. But what would make sense so it isn't quite the big jump that we're asking for from people at this point. But my second point, as far as feedback, kind of goes back to what Councilmember Bessinger was alluding to, and that is those people who are on our fixed incomes. How can we, because I think it's essential that we do something to make sure that this, we talk about who it's going to be a burden on, and to the point of like, well, maybe it is only an $8 increase. Some of us, that's going to be a bigger deal to than others, and so how can we make sure that those that is a bigger deal to are able to navigate that? And also to Councilmember Bessinger's point on that, what are the ways that we can educate not just those people who are going to be more adversely impacted, but all of us really on what it means to make a conscious decision to use less water, because and what kind of things we can do to necessitate less water, like drought tolerant landscaping or things like that. And are there ways that particularly those of the lower income or fixed incomes could access the resources to do that, to help with the kind of greater overall impact of what this increase would mean. Obviously, there's a cost to go to drought tolerant, so is there assistance for that? Or is it some way where, the savings that they're going to get by going to drought tolerant can help fund that, however that would work? But those would be my two main concerns, because I think we've had a lot of different things that have come forward, whether it's our landscape maintenance districts or any of those things. We've talked about CFDs for street lighting. All of these things are costs, and they are going to add up for people where $8 here, $8 there, $7 here. We have people that's going to be a really, really difficult thing for, and we can appreciate the reasons for it and the necessity for that for the city overall. But I just want to make sure that we're intentional about making sure that those people are educated and given access to whatever resources may be out there to help them navigate this stuff along with us.
Any comments, Matt? I'm still back at step one, okay? I still want to understand, with regards to the water master, is it of everything that is needed of the planned areas, or only what is needed of the current users? The dollar figure that you put at the front, is it of everything? The new water treatment plant, all the pipes, is it all those projects together, or is it just current pipes and fixing the current wastewater treatment plant? So I just want to know, because when Lynn added that question, you said yes. Mike, I thought initially said no, so that's why I'm confused.
That's why I asked him.
So does it include everything, or does it not include everything? And to follow up is, if it didn't, you also said, well, the developer has their share. Okay, so say the project costs $1, and it's a new facility, it's an actual facility. How much is developer, how much is current users? Mm-hmm. And I need to know that, because as a current user, I go, hey, that's a new thing. It's all those new developments. Why am I paying for it too? And how do we justify that? So in other words, what's that nexus? What is it? And of those projects, what is it that is meters? Okay, I got a meter. You're going to charge me. But some of them said new facilities, new infrastructure. Well, how are we justifying Old Town folks who've been here since the beginning paying for everything on the edge? I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying, how do we make that argument? So can you help me understand that? I'm still at the beginning of the dollar projects, which are actually new, which are not.
Sure. So the long story short is, yes, this includes the master plan improvements in the rate study. So whether they're in the near-term financial plan, that's maybe a little bit of a nuance that we could pick apart, but we have it built into the financial plan. So, and I'll go back to that tank project we talked about. So we have a tank we're gonna build at the surface water treatment plant. And that tank, when we did the analysis, there was a nexus developed that 25% of that tank would be paid for by the user, and 75% would be paid by development. And that was based on a in-depth hydraulic analysis by a consultant to use all their computer programs to say, hey, this is who is using what on that. Right?
So only 25% is in this 23% increase.
So that $4.5 million that we showed, that represents that 25%.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And there are other things looking out in the future, like the master plan, our water master plan that was developed in 2017, that had a future surface water treatment plant. Yep. And through an analysis, there was a nexus made that provided some level of redundancy and reliability to the users. And that nexus was about 10%. That 10% of that plant cost is included in here.
Okay.
So those are the future projects that are going to be new, but they have some nexus that benefits the existing user, and we account for that in our rate study.
And that is defensible, that nexus that you were saying, the 10%. That is defensible where I shouldn't even be charged this 10%. You know, I've been doing fine ever since I moved here to Clovis back in 1900. And so why are you charging me 10% for this new thing? So we're saying, oh yeah, we are valid in charging you this extra 10%.
Yes, we believe it's defensible.
And then is there a time in the nexus argument in that, hey, if it ain't gonna be built in the next 15 years, why are you charging me now? Charge the next generation. So is there also that analysis, and is that defensible in that when are you going to build that new surface water treatment plant? Is it 50 years, 10 years, 5 years? You know, so do we also do that?
You read my mind. When I talked about the financial plan and getting into the nuance, that's the exact nuance. Where if we look at a project and it's out 15 years, it's not impacting the rates in the rate study. So we have it in there defined as a project, but it doesn't impact the rate study because it's out into the future. So we look really, and Todd, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but our financial plan really focused on the next 5 years. And we kind of took just a little peek beyond that, about 8 years out. So 2033 roughly, I think, is about the
everything's
horizon.
about the 8 years. Okay.
Anything beyond that is noted as a cost, but it's not seen in the rate study, so the rates aren't
Okay.
impacted by it.
That is very helpful. That really gives me a greater comfort level. Now, with regards to tiers, can it be new homeowners pay more than current homeowners? In that you are using it more, you need it more than me. So new homeowner, you're getting, you know, an 85% increase, and I'm only getting a 23. Can you do that or no? Can that be, because they're the need for that new stuff, not us.
Well, with new growth.
For user, not the developer, but just for the user itself.
The developers, I'm sorry, when a new customer comes in, they pay their development impact fee, that one-time
Okay.
charge to join the system. And at that point, they become an existing user. And they're going to participate in the proportionate repair and replacement of the system which they use, just like they'll become just like every other customer. But now these costs, instead of being split over, say, 100 customers, are now being split over 101 customers. So there's some of that economies of scale in a sense. But right, it's difficult to find a way to charge the existing users and new users differently. They're using the system just the same. You know, if they hadn't paid a development impact fee to kind of buy into the system, there might be something there. You could charge them a capital fee or something like that, but not traditionally on rate setting. You recover that upfront cost of buying into the new system, and the facility is required to serve just them. Then they become existing ratepayers like everybody else.
Got it. And then I agree with Lynn in that the first 3 years, it's 69%. Almost, you know, that's huge. It may be 24 bucks at the end, but the number is what we lose in, and that is 69%, 23 each year. That's, I don't know how we do, we'll just have to bite it and go through with it. Is the 3% every year after that sufficient, so that way 20 years from now, we're not looking at it again and going, oh, here's another 28% increase? You know, that 3% that we add on after the first 3 years, is that sufficient? Is that good enough?
So I think our goal would be to perform these water rate studies approximately every 5 years. So that way we would shorten the term like you had kind of talked about. It would allow us to kind of move through, the cost increases wouldn't move like they did. This was a really interesting time because it was 2016. That 5-year time put us right in the middle of COVID. So we were in the middle of COVID. At that same time, we undertook the surface water treatment plant evaluation, where we hired a consultant to actually look at the facility to really examine what costs we need to maintain. So then, and we just finished that in 2023, and then we moved right into this water rights study right after we did that. So then it kind of compounds just because all of these things take time. But we're very sensitive to your point, and it's a very good point. You know, and I think COVID did throw a wrench in this process also.
And my last question is this the best way to go forward in charging the user? Is there any other mechanism that lowers the costs for the users? Is that it? Is this it, just charging the users 23? Or is there something in which, well, if you can put these items in a CFD, or if the developer took care of all these things, it'll be less? Have we looked at that, or is this the best option right now for us as a council to consider and potentially impose on our residents in the coming year?
So as we have evaluated this, we've seen so the capital projects are a large portion. So we could look to delay capital projects as a way to bring down the rate increase. But what we've looked at is the impact of the system in order to maintain the level of service. And so at this point, staff, based on our expert analysis, performed by Stantec and others, that's the capital project that we would recommend at this point. Okay. Other means of like charging customers or gaining that revenue, we're not aware of any at this time. But we will seek to like look for grant projects and things like that that could help offset. But at this point in time, we haven't received any of those.
And when do we pay off the current bond, and when can we potentially rebond?
In 3 years, or right? Yeah. So it's coming up pretty soon in this one. It's like a couple years away before we finish the water bond. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to, as a follow-up, we'll be forced into doing it more often. Your description about you're only going to go 8 years out-ish, right, as you calculate. So if you have something more expensive in year 10, you're going to build in the need to do it. Otherwise, you're going to have a moment, and whoever the council is at that time is going to have to figure out how to catch up. So I think in some ways that's helpful, and I hear you on the COVID, but we bump into this often. We are so frugal that we don't do it very often, but I do think more regular updates. And who knows, maybe development will come to an end and we don't need anything else. And then we'll say, you know what, we're kind of done here for now. We'll hold off until I don't know what. I don't know, but I think, it's hard to predict all of that. But I think the fact you're only looking at really 8 years and this sort of set of increases will force us in a decade to do it again, for sure.
Andy,
and through the annual budget process, we have done our, I believe, 3% increases for a number of years. They just haven't caught up, and we are facing the challenge of SGMA, the State Groundwater Act, that is really pushing our system to the limits relative to how we operated it 10, 15 years ago. So we're paying that price, and the cost increases that we're seeing across the state industry are just really hard to handle when you have 3% increases and you're seeing 8, 10, 15% jumps.
Go ahead, Diane.
Could we just get kind of an explanation for clarification as far as, we've heard as different issues have come before us, a reminder that, we just passed a sales tax increase. And so why is it that we would now be going to the same people for a water rate increase? Can we just get clarification on what the separation is there and how that works so people understand the difference between, and why we would be asking for this having just done that?
Yeah, so Measure Y did include the potential for investing in water infrastructure. It's about a $25 to $30 million revenue source. The level of revenue needs for our water system are significantly higher, as you can see some of these capital projects. In addition, the water system runs its own separate business. And so we are obligated to collect the revenues to run that business in order to make it whole, and nothing more and nothing less. So I could see the water Measure Y contributing towards a water conservation project or something to that effect that isn't eligible as part of our water business, but those are the nuances we have to work through. Additionally, the highest priority was public safety on Measure Y, and that's been the focus as of late.
Yeah, and just the difference between general fund revenues and then enterprise funds and how that works so people understand.
Yeah, Measure Y is our general fund, and council can use those at their discretion for general government, public safety, et cetera. The water fund is an enterprise fund. It's the business I spoke of, and we can't take money out of that business, and we can't put money in. So it is a separate legal entity, essentially, from the city as far as the finances go.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the public portion. If you have any questions or comments on this item, you can ask those, and then if you can ask them all, then we'll try to answer them at the end of your comments.
Brian Wilson, 469 Bergen. My only observation is I got kind of caught up back years ago with the Capistrano program. The water bills were changed. I got really into the bill. I started really looking at the bill. So in this current situation where we currently are, what is the cost per gallon of water?
And before, Brian, before we answer that, do you have any other questions? So that way they'll just, it won't be a back and forth.
The only other one was that one plus versus where it's going to be at when this is over with. Because I based it all on, it's per 1,000, but then I take 1,000 gallons divided by, $1, and I got what it is per gallon. So that's what I was just looking for, because I see the new the new increases, but I don't know what that really means to me. But when I turn on the faucet, flush the toilet, it's 2.1 gallons or whatever. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you address that?
Okay, so here is our existing rate structure. So you can see the volume charge for residential is $1.13 for the first 23,000 gallons, and then it goes up to $1.88 in between 23,000 gallons and 40,000 gallons, and then above 40,000 gallons, it's $2.33. And then commercial is $1.13 up to 23,000 gallons. And then above that is $1.53. So in the very preliminary rate design for uniform, it was around $2.20 per gallon per 1,000 gallons. All of this is per 1,000 gallons. I apologize.
So on a per gallon rate, it would be less than a penny per gallon that's being paid now, and it sounds like we're going up to about, still less than a penny. 0.0013 cents per gallon versus 0.002 something per gallon. Just to clarify.
Thank you. Anyone else to address the council?
There we go. Hit it too many times. Mike Brandini, 2062 Alamos in Clovis. A question, I know you indicated that you'd be having some outreach. I presume that's going to be ads, social media ads. Are you going to be posting on your website about when these public meetings might be? Are you planning any public meetings? Are you reaching out into different sectors, like the seniors? And I do have to clarify a statement that your city manager made, and that he indicated you couldn't put money into it, the enterprise. That's not quite correct. But if you put money, you cannot take money out of it that doesn't relate to the service, but you can put money from other sources into it. General fund money can go into the operation of the enterprise fund. Can't take it out, but you can put it in. But it's got to come from a general source. You can't take it from the sewer and put it in the water. Or you can't take transportation dollars and put it in water. You can put it in general fund dollars. The city attorney can correct me if I'm not accurate with that, but I believe that's the case.
Council, he is correct.
So just general questions about how you guys plan on, what the staff plans on your outreach program, who you plan to target. You're going to send out mailers. You're going to, put radio ads, TV ads, whatever. I mean, or is all of that going to be considered in terms of your outreach?
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Can you help sort of just share, if you know already, sort of our outreach plans?
So our plan was to get feedback tonight, and then we would go back with that feedback, and then update whatever needed to be updated, and then begin our outreach. And that'd be kind of setting up stakeholder meetings. We would schedule a public meeting is the plan thus far, and I believe social media and putting some stuff on our website would also.
Okay. Also, when's the draft study to be available?
We'll have to go back and discuss that internally, and then determine that. At this point in time, I don't have a schedule for its availability.
Okay. So I should follow up as to when it's going to be available, or will it be, when it's available, it'll be on your website?
Yeah, we'll get it out to the
Okay,
industry.
thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Anyone else like to address the council on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that. This is just a workshop, so any other feedback for staff? Okay, do you have enough? What you need? Okay. Thank you very much, Todd, Kevin, and Nick. Good job. Great job. Okay, next we will move into city manager comments.
Yes.
Andy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to highlight, speaking of Measure Y, a few investments that we're making in Clovis PD, bringing on some officers and other infrastructure recently. And then also, we're kicking off some meet with the mayor and city manager over the next couple months. We've got 4 dates there. We may have water rates as part of that discussion. We're also going to target the December 10th meeting to be in this room and have a discussion on changes to the council chambers that council asked us to take a look at.
Okay.
So just wanted to let you know that. And also on the dais is an updated list of council-directed items for your review. And I had one more thing I wanted to mention. Oh, the actual legislation was HR 5147. There's a adjacent bill that the gentleman mentioned during public comments that was HR 1765. It appears that HR 5147 has not been passed, but could be some confusion on there. So I just wanted to clarify the legislation that he was referring to. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to city council comments. Councilmember Basco.
Just a note, I won't be here next Monday. I'll be out of town for that meeting, and Councilmember Bessinger will be covering me at the NKA GSA board meeting. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilman Bessinger.
I'm interested in the HR 1765 that the gentleman talked about at public comments. I remember something that was coming through Sacramento where, I believe it was mostly the wireless people were trying to force through 5G towers, and where we'd have nothing to say about them. I mean, if you go down Armstrong Avenue between Fowler, up near Mickey Cox School, there's this horrendous looking cell phone tower. I mean, it's just hideous. And if the state legislation failed and our friends in the wireless community are trying to do an end run with the feds, us having no say over this god-awful tower going into a neighborhood, that's what this one over near Mickey Cox is. It's awful. I mean, I was looking at one today over by Willow and Herndon. Looks like a tree. I mean, you could tell it's not really a tree, but they certainly made a darn good effort to make it aesthetically pleasing. And if there's something that I'd like the remainder of council if we can give direction to staff, just so we know, and I don't know that our voice is going to be heard, especially after Prop 50 might pass in Washington, but we need to push back on that. This is a backdoor thing. And I got an email from, and I think everybody else got this email, Senior Center Thanksgiving luncheon on the 27th of November. They're taking volunteers, and they have a turkey fund, so if our good folks could help out there, that'd be great. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. And did you want to see if we have consensus on that? Yeah. Do we have enough? Okay, we're good with that. So on the what? On the federal legislation with regards to cell towers. Just to give a report on.
I was just going to say, I wondered to what extent the city could get ahead of that, and could you have your own development standards for things like cell towers that you could impose? I don't know.
It sounds based on that we have, it's just another loss of local control.
But could you get ahead of that and say, hey, this is what we do in Clovis, so if you can build it like this, I mean, I'm not sure, but I think all those are things are worth exploring. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we'll bring an item back detailing the legislation and what it does or doesn't do. And then ask for council direction at that point.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ashbeck.
Just a couple things. I was not able to attend. I was on vacation last week, but congratulations to the Botanical Garden. And I just can't help but reflect on Gordon Russell in the late 90s, who wanted to build that park. And John Wright was just so apprehensive that, I don't know, we'll give you half an acre, probably nothing will ever come of it. So anyway, it was just super fun. It's taken a long time, but just congratulations and with gratitude to the Everett family for the funding of that visitor center. So it's just super great. I know a couple of you were there, but I just wanted to congratulate them out loud. I think that was great. I want to share an experience I had just as an education point. So I was in a drugstore and the person filling my pharmacy said, "You're just the person that can help me." And I said, "Really?" So she gave me a receipt and Andy and Chad are aware of this. She gave me a receipt that one of her coworkers had gotten from a store in that same center, a liquor store. And they bought $2.50 for a soda and $2.50 for chips. And the store charged them $2.50 at tariff tax. And they added this extra tax to the bill in addition to the sales tax. And so the total bill was like $10, which is a lot of money for chips and a soda, which you could have bought in the drugstore, but that's a different story. So just from an education perspective, and Chad went out and visited with the store owner today. So I hope it was just a one-off, but we should just be mindful that if folks are trying to, I don't know, figure out a way to catch up with the tariffs. Now, I don't know how many tariffs are paid on 7-Up and Cheetos. I'm not sure. But anyway, I didn't know, and I appreciate Chad, you going out, and Andy, but I just think if that's a thing, people should just pay a little more attention to their bills if people are adding on to their items, these extra charges because of the tariffs, I think is a education moment for all of us. So I just wanted to report on that. And my final comment is I want to do something that I don't do very often, which is so shocking. I want to commend Mayor Dyer. And he is taking a proposal to the council this week and will be asking for $250,000 to the food bank to support the families that have lost food access today. And it's not unlike the discussion about utilities. How do you cover all of those costs? But I want to commend the mayor for that idea. But my question is, what are we seeing in terms of the SNAP impact on our seniors in particular, since we talked about them earlier? The kid impact is dramatic, and I think the schools are working on that and others. But I maybe just want to think about as a community, what can we do for our seniors that will be without food on Friday? I know the partial funding was restored. They say it could take 6 weeks to get the money back. So for those seniors that leave our center on Friday with no food until Monday, is there something we as a community can do? Can we reach out to the food bank and have food boxes to send home with our seniors? I think we can't sit back and act like it's okay that people don't have enough to eat. Politics aside, whether you think SNAP is good, bad, or indifferent, it's a reality for these folks that they don't have food. So I'm just interested in what our senior center folks are hearing or seeing, or what we might be able to rally private sector, faith sector, support the food bank. But I don't want to be a place where we send them home on Friday with nothing to eat until Monday. And I think that's the reality for probably 25% of those seniors, if not more, probably more. 25% of Fresno County is on food stamps. And our numbers might be lower, but at the senior center, I don't know the number exactly. So I just want to ask if we can think about that, if my colleagues would be interested in supporting, just thinking about how we could do something with the food bank to do our share. But anyway, that's my question, I guess. We have any insights into that from the senior center?
So the senior center operates their lunch program, and that just for the public, that is fully available. If you need a meal, please come. We'll get you dialed in, get you taken care of at the senior center.
5 days a week.
5 days a week. It's a great program that our staff puts together. We haven't been hearing of need, but we have been looking for it and have been looking for ways to fill the gap. The gap is significant relative to what the food stamp program, SNAP, provides. So if we have an opportunity to step in and serve, we'll come to council or maybe be able to do that on our own as a staff. But we're definitely keeping an eye on that and trying to take care of our seniors and others that we care for in our community.
So I just would encourage, because Friday will come and we won't be back here till Monday, and then people will still not have food. So I don't know how to do it more quickly, but I think we as a community need to say that's not an acceptable response. Again, I don't care about your politics, but I do care these people are hungry. And I worry a lot about that. So I would ask that our staff, if the council would support looking into that. I'm not asking for a $250,000 donation to the food bank, but they are great partners. They could do food boxes for us. Others could do food boxes. So today's Monday, and people won't have food on Friday. So I'm kind of worried about Saturday, Sunday for some of those seniors where their only sustenance is the senior center. So anyway, would be interested in others' thoughts on that.
Can I just follow up on that? I think one of the most important things we can do is make people aware of the resources that exist, because I know there's tons of churches and other organizations that have food programs. And so if there's a way that we can kind of collaborate or bring under one thing, whether it's a Facebook page or whether it's notifications at the senior center, to make sure that people are aware of, rather than redundancy or coming up with something new, there's so much that already exists, and just making sure that people have the education and the understanding so they're aware of those resources. I think that's immediate. We can do that and start talking to the other people in the community, because most of us know what maybe our church already offers or does, or what another organization or community group has going. So I think just kind of being a collective warehouse for those resources, and making sure that the people who do come to the senior center or have that interfacing opportunity with what we do, making sure that they have access to those resources. Like I say, that's immediate and hopefully very beneficial to those people. Because I think that's, the key in all of this is that, again, like you say, regardless of anything else, there are people who need it. And we want to make sure that those people are taken care of. I think every single one of us would say that we have that desire to make sure people are taken care of. And I think there's a lot of stuff already going on out there that they can access. So I would encourage whatever we can do to make sure people know about that, to do that.
I agree. I think it's both. I think it's that. But I also know that if I'm hungry and I don't have a car and I barely can get to the senior center, giving me a list of resources in every part of my community health life is not helpful, because I can't get there.
And I'm sure a lot of those places would come to the senior center, like you say, the boxes.
Yeah, how do we just give some kind of help that people are comfortable, they're familiar, they come, and people are not hungry until the SNAP program. If it takes 6 weeks, that's a long time. So I think it's kind of a combination of both things, but I would like, as a community, that we would say that is not okay, and we will do what we can to fill that in right now, by Friday.
Go ahead, Matt.
Just to follow up on that, I think the police chaplain program does a pretty good job with that too, with their resources and reaching out within each other. So I think if we were to reach out to the chaplaincy program, they would probably have a means of actually knowing who's in need and who they could help as well.
So as long as we do something, that would be great. Thanks.
That's an excellent point, Councilmember Ashbeck. And I think it needs to be broader than Clovis. And so we need to partner with any agency within the Fresno metro area, because you can drive to wherever it is. If it's the Hindu temple that's doing it, we'll go there. And so that way, it's sort of a combination of what both were saying, but also as a whole community. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Pierce?
Yeah, had a number of great events I was able to attend, and I know I wasn't alone at them, but last week the Sheriff's Department dedicated their memorial at Area 2 substation, which is off of Armstrong. And it is, to say it's spectacular is an understatement. It had, I think it was about a 4-year project, and the vision and the detail that they put in to this memorial, which is honoring 21 fallen heroes from the Sheriff's Department, deputies and correctional officers, and that they've lost in the line of duty, going all the way back to, I think the first one was 1907. But the history that they took from that and the way they put it together was just incredible. And I hope everybody takes an opportunity to go and see it in person. I had seen pictures leading up to it, and it just does not do it justice. but to see it in person, and even had the suggestion of former Sheriff Margaret Mims to see it in the evening or at night, because that's even more spectacular, I understand. So kudos to everyone who was involved in that, from the Sheriff's Association that had the initial idea, to the Memorial Foundation, to all of the donors and contractors I know donated a lot of materials in that as well. So it was just an incredible project, a great thing to see a community come together for such an important cause, to always remember, never forget those heroes who served our community through the Sheriff's Department and lost their lives, and the families that still carry the burden of that sacrifice. So it was very, very impactful and meaningful to be there, and it is a just one of those destination things for people to check out. So I encourage everyone to look into it, find it. It will, I guarantee, be well worth your time to check it out. And then also, I know some of my colleagues were there as well on Saturday. The Sheriff's Memorial Foundation had their annual dinner and auction, and that was at the Clovis Veterans Memorial District, and that was a really great event as well. And it just reminds us that even though the memorial is completed, there are still additional projects that they're looking to do that will be fantastic for our community to continue those efforts, a heritage center and an endowment to make sure that any future families in that are taken care of as well. Hopefully, we don't need to add to that list of the 21, but want to make sure that those resources are available. And so that was a great event to be at as well. And then was at the Botanical Gardens ribbon cutting along with the mayor. And again, just another incredible facility. And I started envisioning all of the community events that could be there, and the way it was designed and built to have indoor and outdoor functionality in that in the Botanical Gardens is just a beautiful, beautiful facility. And so again, as Councilmember Ashbeck mentioned, kudos to everybody who had the vision and contributions in that to that project as well, because it's a real tribute to our city, and I hope a lot of people go and check it out as well. And then I had a kind of a thought that came about. We've heard a couple different things from residents, community members who attend the meetings, and they kind of point different things out that maybe we could do better as staff and council in expressing different things, whether it's not using acronyms so that people know what we're talking about. And a couple other things. I think, Mr. Scott's had some questions on some of the consent calendar items. And another thing I noticed this week was on the Facebook post where we announce the meetings, and it has a link to check the agenda. I think it would be helpful for people to understand the difference between the agenda and the packet, and what they can find in the packet that could help them answer maybe some of their questions ahead of time about those items and what the staff reports are in that. It can be very difficult to kind of understand what it is. It took me a while to figure it out. And you look at these packets that are hundreds of pages and that. But if there was an opportunity, maybe just to add a line on those that say, there's also a packet that has additional details for each item or something like that could be helpful. Because I had a couple people reach out to me on different items that were answered in the packet, but they'd only seen the agenda and didn't understand. So just a little more education for people, because I think it's great that people are interested and care and are checking things out. And so I just want to make sure that we're helping them be as educated in that process as possible.
Okay, thank you. Let me report out the things I've been to, just so that it's done. With regards to the Botanical Garden, I think, why do I forget our council member, Pat. It's just so neat to see her finally get that dream done, and for us to be able to be, if anything, just moral support and to clear the way. I was sitting with Miss Everett, and she said the neatest thing. She says, young man, you can't take it with you. And it's something I really wanted to do. I just saw it, and I go, oh, we have such good people, good families who are blessed in life, and for them to think of us and to give to the community. And I see, the Smith camps here in the audience, and the way they have led examples of that. It's just wonderful. And so we thank them. We had a pastor appreciation, speaking of our chaplains. We had all the pastors there, and we gave them a certificate on behalf of the city just to appreciate the work that they are doing. And so they had a Faith in Blue at Clovis EV Free, where the community there can come out and actually just see our men and women who protect them each and every single day, and the partnership that we have. Went to a couple of ribbon cuttings to Brylan, she was in Old Town. I mean, the way they fix some of these buildings in Old Town are just spectacular, that you forget that it's behind and it's 3 buildings and it's really neat. And they really just made it beautiful, and it's stretching sort of past SoFi, right? So south of 5th, and hopefully Old Town keeps growing and becoming a beautiful part all the way down to Barstow, if not all the way to Shaw one day. So it's just to see businesses grow there. Went to the Diwali celebration at the Fresno Mandir, and so the Hindu temple in Fresno, they had a celebration. And then the owners of Ramen Yahashi, so the Lin restaurant group, they opened a new hot pot place in Campus Point. And so they invited the city to go, and so I was able to see, that guy started at 18 making restaurants, and now he has Hanaoishi. He has, 8 restaurants now, and he's 23, no, I don't know. So it's amazing what he's done, and he's invested it all here, and he's opened a couple more, and he wants to do more in Clovis, and so got to enjoy that. So if you want to go have hot pot, go there. Wanted to announce that our city manager was a judge at Miss Clovis, Miss Fresno County, and Miss City of Fresno. So he got to pick the future winners or next winners. So thank you, Andy, for doing that. Our youth commission went on a tour of the city, and I know some have seen it, but others have not. And thank you, Brianna and Chad, for taking our youth commission out all morning that Saturday to go see the city. And then I want to say about Butterfly Gardens. It's their 3rd year, and it wasn't until you speak to police and fire how we have worked so hard with them to make it where we are helping the most vulnerable, but at the same time helping them be accountable and be good partners in the community. And so thank you to Chief Eck and to Chief Fleming for the work that you have done with the staff there in doing monthly meetings of just safety and how to answer calls, all that. The help that we have extended, I think, surpassed what you're doing. You're going above and beyond, and thank you so much for that. And I think the appreciation showed of the staff of what great partners we are. So thank you for the patience and just your perseverance in helping Butterfly Gardens just be a good community partner there. I wanted to report out with regards to the COG meeting. And so I'm going to have our staff start to look, and I've said from the beginning, I may represent the city on behalf of the entire council on COG, but I think what we do, the decisions I make, is not based upon my political philosophies, but based upon what the city can do with the allocations made. And I have to vote according to what the city can operate on. And so the allocations, most of it is out, and I want the staff to actually look at it and start to analyze it. And the report gives projects of what it's there. If you can start to dig into the COG report of the allocations and the dollars that are put out to say, yes, 18% for transit works for us. No, it doesn't work for us. Give us that feedback. 10% for regional projects, 52 for strict roads, which includes bike lanes and all that. Active transportation, 6%, which is, the trails and all. What can we do? Can we operate? Are these allocations something that is sufficient for the city of Clovis to operate on? And I think we need your expertise, staff. So Andy, if you can get the staff to start to look at these numbers and say, yeah, we can support something like this, or no, we need a higher allocation here, a % there, or these projects that they listed here, we need a couple more Clovis projects to put in there. This is the time to start analyzing, so that way when it comes back in November, we can speak concretely about substantive changes, which the steering committee will bring back. And so if we can start looking at that, that's already there. There's 9% that is unallocated right now. And so that 9% is $666 million. So it's not a small number. But at the same time, it's something in which we can really be active in working with that and actually guiding how the allocations work. And so, and I think we need, as your representative on COG, we need to speak details and not philosophies. This is details now on what we need to do, what we don't need to do. And I think I made the same request of all the other cities that, if you objected, why does, City X object it? Or why do they support it? Instead of just saying, I just don't like it. That doesn't help our residents. That doesn't help how we move Measure C forward, or we change Measure C, or we don't support Measure C. And I will once again say, as long as our staff says this is something in which the city of Clovis can operate based upon these allocations, I will always support something in which our staff, who are the experts in looking at the detailed numbers, can. I think I would have to support something like that. So I wanted to put that out there. We did vote. The one action we took was we did vote to approve of the attorneys to help draft the measure now. So I think the November meeting, which is a week earlier, so it'll be November 20th, that is the anticipated date of when the measure will come back to COG to really delve into, look at, and dissect. And so if we can get support from staff on that, I would appreciate that. And I think that's all I have, so thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
So the Measure C, if I could just add a dimension to the question. If the categories don't come back exactly like that, I think the question for staff is, what's the dollar value that we would need? So
Yeah.
if it ends up, and I don't know, this is hypothetical, but if it comes back that active transportation has gone away and it gets added to some other category, I'm not quite sure, but I think conceptually, what is the number we need for our city? And then how they get sorted out, then you at COG will be able to go, well, it's this plus this, it's in there, or what's the flexibility? So I think it's still iterative at this point. I know this is the document that's out there, but I would ask staff to look at it slightly more conceptually, because if it doesn't come back exactly in these columns, you'll be sitting there on November 20th going, well, wait, this isn't the columns we have.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just thinking about it conceptually as well as based on the latest public information, which is that. And I have no information about what I just said, except I don't know that this is where it will land. So just be thinking conceptual as opposed to just that document is what I would say.
And I think that's very wise, that steering committee, these are preliminary, and it can still change. And so, but I think even with these and the projects listed, we can still start doing our homework.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have. Okay. Since Councilman Messenger is the one who read the proclamation, he is offering the beer to anyone who would like it, okay? And so if you would like anyone
Except
in
the back row.
in the
Nothing in the back row.
So it's sitting right
Not this back row, just that back.
right next to Kay there. Okay, and with that, we are going to closed session. We're adjourned to closed session. We have one item, conference with legal counsel with anticipated litigation. Anything to report out, Scott?
No, we're not requesting action tonight in closed session.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Mayor, we want to open it up for public comment in closed session, but I see that everyone's leaving,
Okay.
so.
I forgot. Yeah, anyone like to comment on the closed session item? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close it. Thank you.